are listening to the Blue Light with Apameda Programs and Services. My name is Alexandra Kim. I'm your Educational Resources Assistant. And today I'm here with Pamela Kramer with UC San Diego's HDH Services. How are you? Feel free to introduce yourself. How are you doing today?
I am doing very good. Thank you for having me. My name is Pamela Kramer. I'm the Dining Engagement Coordinator for Dining Services. So I've been on campus here almost 19 years working with dining. I've been all over campus. I was with catering, Marshall, Warren, Ravel. I've worked at a bunch of different locations. And then about 5 years ago, moved over to the dining engagement position.
Wow, it's really exciting to have you. Thanks for being here. Before we get started, do you want to explain a little bit about what your current position is as Dining Engagement Coordinator, just so people know?
So for dining engagement, it's really a fun position. Our job is to engage with the students and to be kind of a bridge between the students and the dining and administrative teams. We have a team of student ambassadors that work with me. I have 6 of them that are out there getting feedback and working on events, but our main focus is doing signature event series throughout the different restaurants. Like I said, February is very busy. We just did Black History Luncheon. We had Lunar New Year, we had Mardi Gras, we had a bunch of other smaller events. So we do programming, we work with Res Life, we also work with marketing and social media, and then we run the dining engagement email. So if a student or parent has any questions or anything they need to talk to us about, there's a problem with an order, dining plan, they email dining engagement, and we are ones that reach out and handle those kind of issues. We also do presentations for parents and new students and do events like Triton Day and help with any like questions about the dining plan and anything like that. So it's pretty broad, but it's a lot of fun. So
It sounds really interesting. I feel like there's a lot that you kind of tackle on. Is there something that feels the most fulfilling to you out of all the things that you possibly do with this position?
it's always working with the students. I would think you would any person that works at dining would say to you the best part is working with the students. It was very fun. I was at a wedding this weekend. A good friend of mine got married, and 3 of the guests there were students of mine that worked with me at catering 17 years ago. So to come
Wow.
back and see someone, yeah, to see them with their spouses and their family and children. And so that's what I love so much. So it's been a lot of fun. You get very attached to the students. It's very fun. A lot of times I'm their first job or their first boss. So it's interesting. I hope I'm a good first supervisor and stuff. So it's an interesting thing, but I love it. And I would say that's probably most of our favorite thing about working on campus.
Wow. First of all, congratulations to that friend that got married. I know it might have been a while ago, but still congratulations. Second
Yeah.
of all, yeah, it must have been really interesting. It's almost like you're growing with the students as well, just watching them, because maybe some of those people stayed for more than 1 year at HDH, so you're able to see them grow, and it's really
Well,
interesting.
one thing that's really been nice at HGH is we've had a lot of students that stayed on with us and worked with us career-wise. Like if you go into the administrative building here at Ravel on the 3rd floor where we all are, there's a lot of alumni that work for us. And we're blessed whenever the students stay. My department engagement has engagement manager that works with me, and it was Robert Cabral for years, who was an alumni from Ravel, and now Aaron Contreras works with me, and he's also an alumni. He was the student manager at Cafe Ventanas, stayed on. So we're blessed whenever students stay and go career with HGH. So it brings a lot to it. It makes it really fun to see them this many years on.
That sounds so fun, honestly. Are you also an alumni? And if yes or no, regardless, like how did you get with UC San Diego? How did you start working with HDH? And then specifically after that, how did you get into Ramadan services?
So I actually went to college in Georgia. I'm from Florida originally. And after college, I moved out to Colorado for a few years. And while I was there, my mother moved to California, to San Diego. So I moved out here and started working catering. So I was with a local catering company for years. And I wanted to do kind of a change. The job I was with traveled constantly. It was wonderful, but it was pretty much on the road. So I wanted something a little more settled. And so I started applying around and came to UCSD and started working with catering here and did that for 4 years and then moved into the residential. And as soon as I moved into residential, I loved working with Res Life and I loved doing events at the restaurants I was running. And then we just kept building on the events. And then it finally was like, well, we're just got to make a department that's just engagement. And so they created the department, and I moved over here and Robert came out of operations and started doing that. Because I mean, it was something that wasn't being done on campus and needed it. And then what happens with engagement is students reach out and tell us what is lacking. So like years ago, we had Jewish students reaching out that they needed a kosher restaurant. So we worked with them to build Spice. So then the next group was MSA that are, well, actually the first was Roots with vegan. We had a lot of students wanting a vegan location. So that was one of the first ones that researched and did Roots. And then we did Spice. And then when I was working at Ocean View years ago, they wanted us to try to come up with some kind of halal friendly. So we started researching that. I remember going to trade shows, it was years ago, and going around to all the different food vendors. And I was asking for halal to bring to campus, and nobody could help us. Nobody really knew what was going on. They didn't have products. Now they have them. This was probably maybe 12 years ago. And so we started researching and working with MSA and finding out more about it. And as we were building Canyon Vista, that's when we decided to open the halal restaurant. So it's always learning. Like the students reach out and say, this is what's missing. And then we just start listening and working with them to figure out what can we do to make this work and how do we bring it to the campus. So everything's pretty much driven by what the students would like to see.
Honestly, that's really nice to hear. And it's also really nice to hear about the student involvement that came about. Like Ramadan services, also halal options as well. Are there still things that you currently do when it comes to working with these students? Like, do you still keep up with MSA? Do you still?
Yeah, we do. I usually meet with them. I haven't as much the last 2 years. There's been a kind of a change up. And I've been busy. I just was actually emailing today because we want to host another iftar dinner at Canyon Vista. But we love working with any student group that wants to reach out to us. And that's the feedback. I mean, our program is here to support the students. So we want to know what the students need from us. You know, what can we do to support the community? So that's what we're here for. We're doing a lot of one-on-one interaction. Like the dining directors are now doing this Dine with Dining, where you go and meet you at one of the restaurants and you taste new food and just talk and get feedback and tell them what students would like to see. I mean, I had a student ask, like, well, what kind of information are you using to shape what you're doing? And I said, six. The restaurants at six is such a really good example. We did this huge survey. It was our largest survey of students asking them what was missing on campus and what they would most like to see. And it is literally every restaurant that's at six, because was our next program. And so they wanted, a barbecue house. They wanted every restaurant there you'll see was one of the top voted items from students at that time. And it just keeps going, like how we just did Ventanas, where students reached out and there was a lot of underrepresented food that was not being seen on campus. And so then the Ventanas remodel became about doing food from the African diaspora. So it's, how can we explore and learn? And I mean, we love it because I learn so much every year. Researching and doing the events because we really want to make sure we're doing them correctly. I live in fear of doing something that I would offend somebody at one of the events. So I'm always researching every flower, every linen, because I want to make sure I have it right. And I learned so much. I mean, the Black History Luncheon that we just did was my 14th year on the committee. It was our 25th year of the event. And I learned so much again this year. It's just always a learning process. And so I did not know that much about Ramadan and halal until we started working with the students and researching it and stuff. And I have so much to learn about it. So I enjoy that part of it.
I totally understand that, and I commend you for taking the time to really learn because I feel like it's really easy to kind of distance oneself from what the student voices are. So it's like really nice to hear how you're able to connect with students, and like it's interesting to hear how every year you work this position, and like since we're gonna focus in on the Ramadan services, working on that, you just kind of learn something every year.
Yeah, I mean, Lunar New Year, any of them, the events, we do all this research and I was like, it's amazing. So many things you learn and you start to see how other cultures are doing stuff. And sometimes it just makes so much more sense. Like I'm always joking that to me, Lunar New Year makes more sense to me than New Year's Eve with the ball dropping and everybody get drunk and having a kiss. I'm like, okay, that doesn't, like, to me, there's so much more to it. And Day of the Dead is one of now my favorite holidays. I knew nothing about it. when I moved out here until we did an event and I started researching it. And then I'm from Florida, from a Jewish family, and my dad, he was remembered on the ofrenda. And my family was like, that your father is being remembered on an ofrenda in San Diego it's just such a different, it was just really, it was a cool moment to see my dad's picture on there and stuff. So you just learn so much. And I think that's what's great is about what you're here, is to see different cultures and learn different things when you're in college. And we're happy to be a part of it and to learn from it.
I think that's one of the most interesting things about what you do is it's almost like a cultural enrichment for the people behind these services as well. And it's like the people behind these services, like they have a decent amount of knowledge as to what they put into, but at the same time, they don't like disregard the fact that they're also teachable and they're also
Mhm.
learning throughout this entire thing. I think that's one of the most fulfilling things when students are able to talk with people in your position at HDH with like the dining engagement and whatnot. I guess focusing in a little bit on the Ramadan services, like what was a little bit of the research that you did? You hinted at it a little bit, but feel free to expand a bit more.
So I was talking about this earlier today with a friend of mine who was involved with it for years. I remember the first time I had even heard about it, we were just doing to-go boxes on the side of the buffet for students that were fasting. And I didn't know. So that was, I mean, that was probably 12, 13 years ago when I was like, okay, you need to have a box for them to take to go. And so then when we were learning more about it, then we're like, okay, we need to kind of add something more to the program. And they had added a like a to-go box meal that they could take home for them for breakfast. But honestly, I had no idea that they couldn't even have water during the fast till a few years ago. And so every time I meet, I learn more. And so our program developed throughout the years. I mean, we did a few years of the box meals. We went to MSA, and that really wasn't really meeting everybody's need. So one year we did where we got a kitchen at each of the colleges and got a lock. We had locks installed. We helped outfit some that, like, if they needed refrigerators or stuff like that. And then you could just come to the admin building and check out a key so that anybody observing Ramadan would have access to a community kitchen that they could use, early in the morning and stuff like that. So there have been different variations of the program throughout the years, trying to see, like, okay, did this work? Then we'd meet with students afterwards and, did this fulfill the need? And kind of that one with the kitchens didn't go over as well as we thought. It wasn't used as much as we would think it would be. But we were glad we were able to research and know all the different community kitchens, because it's a great resource for any student, and especially a student that's observing Ramadan, because they're still available to them. I mean, every college has a community kitchen that can be used. And so it's just getting out there and finding, the resources to help. We did where we've opened the restaurants earlier, kept them open later. We did where we had kind of Ramadan halal friendly type meals in some of the restaurants, but that was before we had a halal certified kitchen. So we weren't able to do halal certified. Then once we got the halal certified kitchen, then we were able to do the halal certified meals there. And then finally, right now, what we have is our market kitchen line. We have a line of food that we sell at the markets, and we make in-house. And so for the last few years, we've been doing this market kitchen line of items that are really good for anybody who's following Ramadan. There's like a kind of like a protein pack with pistachios and dates. There's a breakfast burrito. There's items that you can grab and take with you. Luckily, our restaurants stay open later now, so that's been really helpful. The restaurants, a lot of them are open until 11 o'clock at night, at least 9. The markets starting next week will stay open until midnight. That's kind of new, but before that it was 11. So we have a lot of things open later into the evening. We did, I think it was the first year after Canyon Vista opened, we opened at 5 a.m. for breakfast. We just didn't have a lot of people show up. And so after a year of doing that, it was like, okay, we looked at it. It wasn't really used that much. So how can we, what could we do? We extended hours at other locations. So I know we extended hours at Wolftown to an earlier opening over at 6, so centrally located, trying to see if that would help. So it's kind of a what works and what doesn't approach, and just talking with students afterwards and saying, did this help? The last few years has been the breakfast items that we have through Market Kitchen. And then we always do like an end cap display at each of the markets with halal items for easier access.
That sounds great. It's interesting to hear how many services that HGH has provides. I feel like not many people know about it. I feel like especially like underclass students that use the dining dollars are like still trying to figure out what's available from DC San Diego campus and what's not. It sounds like it was almost like a trial and tribulations thing with some of the services. So I guess for this year specifically, just to kind of narrow it down, like this year specifically, what HH accommodations are there for students that observe Ramadan specifically this year?
So for this year, we will have the breakfast items again through Market Kitchen. So there's a breakfast snack pack, like I said, which has dates, pistachios, and cheese, which is just like a little small box, kind of grab and go, throw it in your backpack, type of something that you can have right when you break fast. There's also a cold breakfast protein box that has different items you could pick up at any of the markets for breakfast. And then we have the breakfast burrito that's easily reheated. And we'll have flyers and stuff that we'll be able to share. And we usually do like A-frame signage outside the market, highlighting those items. And then, like I said, we'll do an end cap at each of the markets with items that are halal friendly and some of the different halal items that we sell from different vendors like Saffron Road and Saras, and some of those will be there and available. So
That sounds great. That sounds great. I'm sure it'll be really useful for a lot of students that go there. Because this is my fourth year, so I've seen
mhm.
some of the services kind of like come and go. Some of the things adjust as the Ramadan services are being refined, and it's been interesting to see how much things have evolved, how much just how much the HDH takes to like figure out what works and what doesn't, not only for their services, but also what works for the students and what doesn't. So I feel
it's
like,
it's a
go ahead.
constantly changing process. So it is one of those we're always adjusting and seeing what is working, what isn't working, seeing, how can we make it better, and trying to improve the program. So
That sounds great. And I guess in more detail, I know that the dining hours adjust in some of the halls, as you mentioned earlier. So I guess in detail, how do you prepare all the other staff in HDH and UC San Diego to accommodate for that? The new hours, the different menus, just different, just like different patterns of like students coming in and coming and not coming in because of Ramadan. Like, how do you in detail prepare the rest of UC San Diego and HDH for that?
So we meet with a group of students. It's called the Undergraduate Housing Advisory Council. And so we meet with students. So any kind of major changes to hours, rates, anything like that goes through them. We'll propose it to them, do a presentation. If they approve it, then it goes through like the proper channels for it to be added, any kind of major adjustment. But we go through different stages of menu development throughout the year. We try to refresh every quarter with seasonal items. So you'll see something different from fall, quarter to winter to spring. But then the summer is the major culinary development time for us. Summer is crazy busy for us. That's when like all of the notes and everything that we've been getting throughout the year, that's when it goes in and we try to redo the menus to almost every restaurant on campus to see what needs to be changed, where are we not missing. You'll see, okay, we need 30% more vegetarian items. We need some more of this. And so it goes into this, we have a culinary team that just works to develop these. We do tastings throughout the summer. Students sign up to be on the summer tasting team, which is pretty fun. So the students come in and go to the tastings and try everything. We do that for the events as well, where we have the culinary team come up. Right now, we've just been doing tastings. Things got a little different during COVID. And so it took us a few years to get back into the swing of the big events. So, but we will be having like the full tastings for the events and having students come in. Like the first year we did Holy Festival at Canyon Vista, we had a student committee that came in and they were bringing recipes like from home. And the chefs were working with them and developing, just make it as authentic. It's so much fun to work with them and develop recipes and stuff like that. We did an iftar dinner one year at Canyon Vista, and we're hoping to do it again this year. That was really a lovely night. We did that at Canyon Vista, and we set up the buffet. We had like an appetizer station outside. Again, learned so much. It was really one of my favorite nights on campus. I mean, I still have at my desk all these thank you notes and learned so much. It was just something I'd never experienced anything like that. Most of our staff hadn't. And so it was such a learning experience. And it was so nice to see. And everybody was so grateful for us to have had it. And I was like, well, of course, we just opened a halal restaurant. This makes perfect sense. We want it to be a place for the community. We want them to be able to hold stuff like that there and do that. So everything on it. It takes us a little while in dining because we have to go through the process of, culinary development, the nutritionals, allergens, everything. So that's why we kind of keep notes throughout the year and then do like the major push over the summer. I mean, summer, it is hectic with new menus, new everything coming out, and anything else we're going to like, we go over the event schedule for the next year. We go over that in the summer and develop the calendar and go through that. So anything like if student group reached out and said, I want to add this event, then it's something that we're like, okay, where can we make this work? Can we add this to an event? How can we do it? And start reaching out over the summer to develop it. Now, if a student group reached out and said, hey, can we do something like quickly, like next quarter, anything we can do like with Res Life and through the student group, we would see what we can do to accommodate. But to do like the huge signature events, that usually takes us a little bit longer, or we'll start out slower. To kind of see that with Diwali, we did like a smaller theme dinner at Ventana's for Diwali this year. And we'd done like a theme dinner for Holy Fest and like a smaller signature event, but we're building up like next year, we're planning that being one of our bigger events. So it's just kind of the research, menu development and finding, the activities and everything that we would need to do to build it into a bigger event. And then we can launch it into a huge one. So we're looking forward to doing Diwali next year, as one of our big signature events. And every year we want to find new events that we can add. What isn't being represented on campus? What would the students like to see us celebrate? And so we just start going into research mode.
That's so interesting. It's interesting to hear how long term it is too. The amount of preparation that goes in year round, but especially during the summer. I didn't even know about. I think it's because I'm a COVID freshman. I came here in 2020 when COVID was at its peak,
It's so
so I
different.
had no
Yeah.
idea. I had no idea the tastings were a thing until now, actually.
Yeah, well, and we didn't have them for a while during COVID. For a while, the only students that were at the tastings were the student ambassadors. And they were during COVID, they were so vocal because they really felt like they were the voice of the students. So, I mean, you'd see them at meetings and you have all of dining administration, all of leadership there talking about a recipe. And my students would raise their hands like, no, we just don't like
Just
this.
no.
No, just no. And they listened because it's like, it doesn't matter if we like it, it's if the students like it. So it's a lot of fun to be part of the tastings. And yeah, the summer is hectic. It's a lot of fun though, but it is very hectic. It goes really quick with all the different, imagine doing every restaurant gets complete overhaul and then tasting for each restaurant and development that way. So it's a crazy busy summer, but a lot of fun.
Wow, that sounds crazy, honestly. And then just specifically filtering in on the iftar events, how does that usually work? How does preparing for the iftar specifically work? What are all the some of the processing steps it takes to like really make sure that it's this big event that can go on successfully?
So it's reaching out, it's seeing what support we get, what student groups reach out to us and what kind of interest there is, and then what restaurant we can make it work at. I mean, obviously iftar would be at Canyon Vista because that's our only halal certified kitchen. And so it's working with the team there and with the student group. And if we can bring Res Life into it as well, we always like to partner with Res Life as much as we can. They're a great resource and we, if at all possible, we want to have them involved. So the first iftar dinner was just at a meeting with MSA saying, could we try, doing this? And so it was a lot of research, a lot of stuff I went and got at a market locally to make sure it was authentic, like all the desserts, anything that we didn't think we could make in-house and do correctly. I bought from a store that they had told me to go to. The students had showed me and went in there and got stuff. And then the rest was recipes that we worked on with our chef. So hopefully for the iftar this year, we'll be doing something very similar. And then we also want to make sure it's open, like, because our restaurants are open to the students at all times. So we want to make sure that other students coming in are learning about what's going on, but they're still having what they need, so it's a kind of an educational process for everybody. So the iftar dinner was a little different because we had it separate. We didn't have people going through the serving line just because after fasting, we don't want them to wait. So we wanted to make sure they could get their
Yeah.
food as quick as possible. We wouldn't want them going like ordering on the app and waiting so we did that as a buffet. So it was a little different setup and I think we'd probably still do it that way just because it's a different circumstance, but then the other stations are still open for other students to come in and understand it. And we try to have educational pieces at the restaurants, like what is halal and that, but I think it is important for other students to know more about it, because I don't know if everybody knows as much about Ramadan as like as much as I've learned over the years. I don't know if the other students are really aware of everything that's going on.
That's a really interesting point you bring up. It's a lot of serving. It's about serving the students that do participate in Ramadan services that do observe the holiday, but it's also about ensuring a safe environment for those students. And the part that is educating those that may not be as aware, those that do not observe as well. So it's kind of interesting how that's also part of the process.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and I mean, we want any event to be educational, but I think the more anybody knows about it, the more understanding, the better. Because I mean, I can't imagine um doing like observing Ramadan for 30 days. I can't imagine doing that. It's something that is just it seems extreme, and but I think it's amazing. I mean, we've had some staff that work for us to do it. And as I'm learning more, I'm like, aren't you starving? Like I'm dying by lunchtime. But you know, that they're doing it, it's important to them and what they're getting from it. As you learn it, you just get a little more respect and more understanding of other cultures. So I think the more that we can get that out there, the better it is for the whole population.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's truly, there's just like the cultural significance in observations and celebrations like Ramadan, where some may not understand it, but there's still room to extend empathy and extend respect towards
Yeah.
that. I believe that. And I think it's really nice how your position at HDH as the engagement coordinator and like the things that you do as well as the rest of the HDH staff, of course, how it goes beyond simply the food services and what's being served, but also there's like a bigger meaning to what you do and how that's highlighted in Ramadan services. So if you want to expand a bit on that, go for it.
Well, I mean, anything we can do to support the students is what we want to do. You'll see, I mean, I always love like during finals week when the staff are writing little notes to everybody on their coffee cups and stuff like that, because that's why we're here. I mean, it's the whole point. Without the students, HGH wouldn't exist. I mean, we're the largest employer. It's not, students aren't just our guests and customers. We're actually the largest employer of students. So, I mean, students are everything we do. So it's however we can help them and make this as an easier transition for them. I mean, we have students that are vegan, you know, working in our restaurants that may not want to work in a restaurant that's serving meat. We have students that are working for us that are observing Ramadan. And it's like, okay, well, how is that affecting you serving food all day? You know, it's just being more aware of what's going on and being more accommodating to it. And I think UCSD in general does a really great job at that. And I think HGH works really hard, try to be aware and make sure that we are remembering, you know, what's going on. And that, you know, this is a big change coming to college. It's a big adjustment. You're away from home, and we want to make sure, you know, it's as easy an adjustment and that the students are enjoying and, you know, having a good experience in college. It was so different the COVID years. Like I always, for some of my students now, one Catherine is about to graduate, she was like, her first few years were COVID. It was just such a different experience. Like you said earlier about being a COVID kid, that, you know, everything was online. And I was like, wow, they just really missed out on so much. And the campus is so different now than it was even before COVID. We were talking about it at lunch today, because before COVID, we had so many like self-serve salad bars, stuff like that. Like everything changed. It's a whole different. So we didn't have the app before COVID. I mean, the mobile ordering app came out. It was coming out anyway, but it just happened to coincide with COVID. And so it's just such a different feel of how we do all of our service and stuff and adjustment. And as you get more used to it and refine it. So I say every year we say, oh, okay, we should do it this way, you know, learn from your mistakes, see how we can make the programs better and more inclusive for everybody.
That's honestly really interesting. And my next question kind of goes into it's been, did you say it was 12 years since MSA first reached out to talk about?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was probably
Yes.
about 12 years.
Yeah, so it's been 12 years since you've been working with MSA and then like evolving with HDH on the services that come about for Ramadan, as well as like other just like halal options and et cetera, et cetera. What do you think has been like the biggest change from 12 years ago until now? And even a follow-up, has COVID had any effect on that at all?
So, I mean, the biggest change for us was opening a halal certified restaurant. That was I mean, opening a kosher restaurant too was very strict and learned a lot and always are. But opening the halal restaurant was completely, like I said, we was going to trade shows and nobody was able to help us. People just didn't have it. They weren't aware of it. We were way ahead of the curve, like trying to open a halal restaurant. So, I mean, we reached out with a group called Ifanka that helped us with our certification, taught us. And so opening the restaurant, I mean, Canyon Vista is the largest halal certified restaurant at a university. So it's a big thing on campus. And opening our kosher restaurant, we were one of the first. We were the first of the UCs to open a kosher restaurant. And there was only like 4, I think, in the country that had a certified kosher, and then had halal on top of it. So it's always one of those things when you first start looking, you're like, there's no way we're gonna be able to pull this off. Like, how are we gonna do this? But then as you start breaking it down, you're like, okay, we can do this. And it's everything, like through the signage, having them come through, how we set up the kitchen, how we were receiving product, everything. It's just like step-by-step learning how you can do it, and seeing it is such a learning curve. And then you're able to, I mean, the chefs like will go in and it's like, okay, you're going to be running a halal certified restaurant. You're going through all this other training. I mean, but what a gift. Like a lot of our staff, where would you get that experience that you're working in a kosher restaurant, in a halal restaurant, at a vegan place? You know, you're learning a lot. Like when we were opening Ventanas, we brought in consultants to work on each station, so that we were making sure, like opening a Caribbean station, we wanted to make sure we were really doing the authentic. When we were working on recipes for Canyon Vista, we're working with Ifanka to make sure that we can source all these items, the different research. I mean, the amount of meetings I was in discussing like how the animal, like the different ways the animal would be slaughtered for it to be halal versus I was like, okay, things I never thought I would know and have that much research into. It's just fascinating, and it's been really amazing thing to watch us grow and do. And we were all very, very proud of opening up Canyon Vista, getting that done. It was, you know, a tight turnaround. The remodel turned out beautifully, and getting all of the certification in and everything was just a big, big undertaking. And how I was saying, how do I think things are different since COVID? It's like I was saying, it was so different before. We had so many self-serve options. We had a lot of kind of more grab and go. A lot of the transitions we've also had is to get away from, like when I first started working here years and years ago, things were more like a buffet, and food would be prepped in bulk and like kept in warmers. And then you start learning about food insecurity and food waste. You're like, okay, how do I cut back on that? And then I want to say it was probably around the same time, about 12, 13 years ago, our dining director was very much into, no, I want batch cooking. I don't want stuff sitting in a warmer. At one point they came in and they moved all the warmers from behind the line, because it used to be, I'd come in and there'd be like 4 pans of scrambled eggs ready to go in the warmer. And now it's like, no, no, no. You're going to cook, you know, you're going to do batch cooking. It tastes better. There's less food waste. So every like thing that comes up, you just learn more about and refine it, and then change the kitchens for how we're going to do things. So it's a different, you know, totally different environment than when I first started. Back then we had like the same food would be at every location. So we were on like a cycle menu years and years ago. So what we were serving at Canyon Vista and Pines, and you know, it was 64 was Plaza back then. It's all the same menu, which is what week you're on. And then it just completely changed. It's like, no, let's make like individual little like food courts with different platforms. And now they're all different. So there's no, I mean, it used to be, okay, today's tacos, and there's tacos at every restaurant today. Now it's, you know, everything's different. They do more of a destination dining and a lot more options. I mean, when I went to college a long, long time ago, it was one cafeteria like in the middle of the campus. And it was very much like you got your tray and you went through the line, and whatever they had, the amount of options, whoops, on campus. I can't even believe the amount of options on campus, not just the dining options, just in general. There's so many restaurants on campus and such a wide variety. So it's nice to see that there's so much out here to choose from.
That's amazing. The idea of one cafeteria at UC San Diego, knowing how ginormous it is, no.
No. Well, my college was also much smaller, and it was a long time
True.
ago. But most parents that I'm meeting at parent orientations, they say this was not what it was like when I was in college. So it has definitely, but students are a lot more, they're much more, they're more foodies. They're much more into the food. But I mean, back then we were like chicken tenders, fish sticks, anything. People are much more evolved in what they eat now. And there's a lot more diversity in the food. There's a lot of food now that I would have had no idea about back then. And now, I mean, we have so many different items to choose from. So it really opens up everybody's palate and stuff.
It's really
Right.
interesting how you talk about this is like cultural enrichment for the students as well. Even just seeing the differences in the cuisines that they eat, I guess, before versus like nowadays. I guess I was gonna ask this as well. How would a student like what's the best way to contact you or contact HDH? Is it just email? Is it being part of the undergrad council? Or what are some of the best ways to
So if
contact
you just want, if you have a question or anything like that, you can always email dining engagement, and it's just diningengagement@ucsd.edu. And when you email dining engagement, you're emailing me or Aaron, like I said, who was the alumni, or there's another member of our team, Daryl, who's been here, I think, 23 years. He's been on, so we've all, and then a few of my students. So it's a very small group of us. We try to respond within 24 hours. Dining engagement has gotten a lot more popular, so we're having a lot more emails than we did before, but you can reach out that way. You can also go through the app. If you do app support, that also sends you to dining engagement, so you'd still get us. You can also, another great resource is go up at the restaurant and talk to the managers. I had a meeting with students last year, and we were talking about like some of the complaints we get through dining engagement, where it's like, okay, this was cold. And I was like, okay, we're very sorry that that happened. Did you go up to the counter and ask, them for new eggs? No, I didn't think I could. As a student said, I'm like, well, would you have asked outside at another restaurant? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, okay, our staff is very approachable. So if you have an issue with your order, you could walk up and they'd fix it right there on the spot if that's available, if you're there. So if you had something going on at your college, like we used to do a lot, like with Revell has Ode to Avocado, like each college has, I remember the watermelon drop and all that stuff. Anything like that, or any programming or anything you're having at your college, you can go talk to anybody in the restaurant. You just ask for one of the managers. And most of our managers have been here for years, been on campus, have worked a few different colleges, are great resources for any kind of student activities, any programming at the college. And then you can also ask to meet with any of the dining directors. If you email dining engagement and you want to talk to one of them, you can come to one of the Dine with Dining workshops. You could email. I was setting up for Mardi Gras the other day and met a student whose group was working on a project about like portion sizing and different things. And she's like, would anybody be interested? And I was like, yeah. So she's met with Jeff. She's meeting with her RDs. Like, we'd love to hear the ideas and want to talk it through. And if there's a program, we're all very available and easy to access. If you email me at dining engagement, I can put you in touch with anybody in the department, or if you go to any of the restaurants or markets and ask for a manager and say, like I always tell people with the markets, if you're at, let's say you're at John's Market, which is small, and Six Market is big, but you see an item that you like at Six Market that isn't at John's, if you just ask the manager there, say, hey, can you carry this brand or this flavor that they have at Six? It's very easy for us to transition something over. It's like if you're not seeing it in your local market, or if there's just a brand or an item that we're not selling at the markets, bring it up to one of the market managers, because we're always researching, looking for new vendors. You could just say, hey, I really think this is a product that other students would really enjoy. And then usually what we do is we bring in the product, do a tasting, try it out, get student feedback. And if it's something that we can bring to campus, we're more than happy to do it. So just reach out and talk to me or anybody at any of the locations.
That sounds great. Thank you. And is it the same way if someone wanted to specifically reach out in terms of organizing the iftar or anything with Ramadan programming? Would it be similar as well?
Yeah, so you would email me for anything like that, and then I bring it to dining leadership and operations, and we work it out from there and stuff. Like I said, we have the event schedule pretty set for the year. We do it over the summer, so we have kind of an idea of what we're doing, but there is times when we can add stuff. I mean, we did a really popular, we did a farmer's market at over in front of Price Center for Wellness Week. And it was just so popular. The students really enjoyed it that we're like, okay, let's do another one. So if we can squeeze in another event, or if we feel like there's a need, then if we can make it happen, we will absolutely do it. And if we can't, like I'll say, if I don't think I can make it happen this year, but I'd be happy to sit on a committee with students to develop it for next year. That's always an option that's open.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. And I think we're gonna get to the concluding section, and we do this thing on a podcast where we do recommendations. This is actually something that came about when Brian and I do our meetings. Um, the theme is for us usually is that you just recommend anything. But I guess because this is a bit of more of a themed episode, I'm gonna go two ways. First one, do you have any halal recommendations in San Diego? It can be on or off campus.
I'm trying to think. There's a lot of places down on Miramar Road that I've gone to eat at that were really delicious, but I don't always know the names of them. One of our students, Ash, one of the ambassadors, was showing me a few. And there's also in Kearney Mesa, there's a place called Village Indian Cuisine that I love that we go to that is halal, but it's more like curries and stuff. But I love the food there. And then there's a market, I cannot think of the name, over by my house, which is where I got the desserts for the iftar dinner a few years back. And it's amazing to walk in there. It's like the first time I walked into Ranch 99. I was like, what is going on? I don't know what's going. I was like, can somebody help me? I have no idea what's going on here. Now I'm there all the time. They're like, would you like a membership? And so I wish I could remember the name of this market. I mean, I want to say it's just International Market. It's on Balboa, but I don't think that's the names right. But there's so many different items and the desserts are amazing. They have like little baklavas and different little pastries that are really delicious. But it's just fun to get out there and try anything at the different markets, walk around and see what's out there.
That sounds so delicious, and I'll even do the research to find some of these names too. So I'll refer it back to you so you can visit it again.
I'm
And
always
then
out looking for decorations so that I'll get it. I'm
oh,
like, I was like, I need help decorating and I want to make sure it's authentic. So I'm always finding stores or I'll walk into a store and be like, I need help. I'm throwing my very first Lunar New Year. Tell me what I need to get. And people always jump in and help. And it's a lot of fun. See the different.
that is so fun. And I guess my second recommendation question, this is more of like a final word or final saying on your behalf as well, because this is going to go a little beyond dining services. But I guess a recommendation for staff, faculty, or just any other adult figure at UC San Diego, recommendations on what they can do to best support students during Ramadan.
So I think one of the most important things, and we brushed on it before, is education about about what other cultures are going through. I don't know if I mean, I think people are more in tune now, but I don't know if everybody understands everything that other students are going through, like with Ramadan, people observing Ramadan, what they're going through for that time. And for faculty and staff and everybody to be more involved in it and learn more about it. I mean, when we do trainings with our staff, like when we do an allergen training or sustainability training or any kind of training about halal, our staff are so interested because they want to learn, they want to understand. And the more you learn and understand, the better you can help other people and know what's going on. So I think for faculty and staff, any of the adults around, the more you open your eyes, because sometimes you're just used to what's going on in your world and you're not really paying attention. And so there's so many other cultures and things to find out about. So I would open your mind up to that and kind of see and understand and try to adapt some of that into your own. Like we've picked up some traditions from the different events that I've been doing. Like, we'll do some things around Lunar New Year that like at home now we're doing some of the traditions moving up to it or anything like that. So I think just being open to it and learning about it helps the whole community.
That sounds so great. Thank you so much again for taking the time to be here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And until now, you have been listening to The Blue Light with Affirmative Programs and Services, and we'll be signing off until the next time. Bye.